applause. Admit.
There we go.
You can walk around with them. You can't jump them.
All right, we are
Vintage people like us.
live, my friends.
Hit the share screen thing.
Yes, sir. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat
Welcome.
Shabbat
It's my pleasure to welcome you for our Shabbat service this evening. Mike is on the slide deck tonight. So thank you, Mike.
I'm having trouble getting the slide deck. It's up in the, oh shit. Sorry. Lisa, everything has disappeared.
Open your email
My email.
where you found the slide deck to begin with.
That takes several steps. Why did it disappear?
I don't know.
Randomly clicking.
Or you have a bunch of stuff on your computer.
There.
And now what do I click to make it big? Slideshow.
Yes. But first whoops. Okay, there we go. Excellent. Everybody's got that? Everybody seen it?
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. All right. We are going to begin our Shabbat worship this evening with Shiru Ladonai.
She didn't miss a bit. Sorry, leave it alone. Where's the finger?
All right. And there we go. Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Shemo, Asher miyom leyom Yeshuato, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Shemo, Asher miyom leyom Yeshuato, Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Shemo, Asher miyom leyom Yeshuato, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Shemo, Asher miyom leyom Yeshuato. Do we have a volunteer to light the Shabbat candles this evening?
No. I'm not doing that.
Somebody like to say the blessing?
What? What? You're looking at me weird. What?
Did someone volunteer? Otherwise, I will.
Wonderful. Thank you, Steve.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotzav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen. Thanks, Steve. Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task accomplished? Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time, contain the retreat of the hours and days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat abide. We continue with Lecha Dodi. Shabbat What makes a fire burn is space between the logs, a breathing space. Too much of a good thing, too many logs packed in too tight can douse the flames almost as surely as a pail of water would. So building fires requires attention to the spaces in between, as much as to the wood. When we are able to build open spaces in the same way we have learned to pile on the logs, then we can come to see how it is fuel and absence of fuel together that make the fire possible. We only need to lay a log lightly from time to time. A fire grows simply because the space is there, with openings in which the flame that knows just how it wants to burn can find its way. Yitkadav yitkada shemeh rabba, ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich machutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayedecha kol beit Yisrael, ba'agala, u'vizman kariv, v'meru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach, le'alam li'amei amaya, yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, Shemei de Kudesha Brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran b'yamaha, v'meru amen. Continue with our call to worship, the Baruch Hu, with the meditation before it. La Would somebody like to share this reading?
I would.
Thank you.
This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it, we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim.
Thank you, Lacey. So this is a story I get to tell once a year because it comes from this week's Torah portion. It's actually not from the Torah portion, but it's a midrash on this week's Torah portion, Vayechi. So in this week's parsha, Joseph is on his deathbed. And the midrash tells us that as Joseph is on his deathbed, his sons gathered around him. He's worried. Remember that they've now been living in Egypt for 17 years. And Joseph, of course, has been there much longer. And Jacob is worried. Why is he worried? Worried, of course, that the influence of the Egyptians is going to turn his sons into Egyptians. It's going to turn them away from Judaism. Well, so he says to them, my sons, what can I do? What can I do to make sure? What can I do to make sure that you will be true to what our God, that you will be true to Judaism after I'm gone? How will I know that you will carry on our faith? Now remember, Jacob has another name, Yisrael, one who wrestles with God. And they say to him, Shema Yisrael. Listen, Israel, Shema Yisrael. Adonai Eloheinu. Adonai is our God. Adonai Echad. Only Adonai. And with his dying breath, he says, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Blessed is God's name forever and ever. And this little midrash explains why we say, and many congregations say that one little line in between Shema and Ve'ahavta in a whisper and not in a full voice. We say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed in between Shema and Ve'ahavta, because remember that there's no line in between Shema and Ve'ahavta in the Torah. Shema leads right into Ve'ahavta in the Torah. And this little kavanah, this little explanation, this little midrash explains why we have that extra line in the Shema. So that's a teaching from our tradition. And with that, we're going to continue with the Shema. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Would someone like to share this reading?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
Sing the song of men and women, joined in understanding and respect. The song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravaged by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
Thank you, Sue. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, oh seifele, nora tehilot, oh seifele. Malchutecha ra'u v'necha, bokei hayam, lifnei Moshe Miriam, ze'elianu v'yameru, Adonai yimloch, Adonai yimloch, le'olam va'ed. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Would someone like to read this prayer?
I would be happy to do that.
Thank you, Richard.
Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Baruch atah Adonai ha-poresh Sukkot Shalom Oleinu B'al Kol Amo Yisrael Ba'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Thank you, Richard. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. We continue with the tefillah. Adonai sefatai titrach, ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo be'ahava. Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham be'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah Rav Hoshia, Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem. Bechakel chayim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofei cholim, Umatir hasurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al givurot, Umido melech, Melech memit umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kdoshim b'chol yom yehalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Would someone like to share this reading?
I can do it.
Thank you.
Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines this darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
Thanks, Mike. How about this prayer? Would someone like to read this one?
May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Thanks, Mike.
Should I go on? No.
No, I got it. I got this one.
Okay.
God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki hatavu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki hatavu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. We take a moment for silent reflection and prayer, accompanied by our maestro, Mike Stern. You need to click on the button. We're not hearing anything, Mike. Did you click on the audio button?
Sorry?
Did you click on the audio button?
Oh.
Our thoughts now turn to those who are in need of healing of mind, body, and spirit, those in our community and those close to our community. Barbara Arno, Marcy Berman, Carol Castro, Isaac Cohen, Sarah Cohen, Sylvia Cohen, Susan Cooley, Kay Cosby, Bruce Dalby, Carolyn Dowland, Stuart Dowland, Don Elmore, Steve Feynman, Bernice Fischel, Justin Folk, Barbara Frisbee, Michelle Harvard, Matt Kiefer, Jana Lesser, Olivia Martinez, Dennis Martin, Jean McPhee, Dan McShane, Mike McNearney, Tom Moore, Margaret Muldoon, Charles Patrick, Ruth Ann Paul, Ken Samet, Diana Samuels, Bruce Schlossberg, Ron Stevens, April Singer, Emilio Vasquez, Susan Weber, Marcia Gorin Wesser, and Kay Williams. Are there others for whom we are praying for healing this Shabbat?
Harriet Richmond and Keith Shimke.
Mike
Carter.
Thank you.
Loretta Doty.
Thank you.
Gary Poole,
Thank you.
Jacob Blake and David Fishelman.
Thank you. For those who've been named and for those we name in our hearts, we say, Misha Berach, Avotenu ve'imotenu, Abraham, Yitzchak ve'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, hu yivarech et hacholim shalanu. Hakadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem, Lahachalimam Ularabotam Ulahachazikam, V'yishlach Lahem Mehera Refuah Shlema Min Hashamayim, Refuat HaNefesh Urefuat HaGuf, Hashta B'Agalah V'zman Kariv V'nomar Amen. And we continue with our Misha Berach that we sing. Avotenu, Mekor HaBracha Mike, if you wouldn't mind taking down the slide deck. Thank you so much. What are you doing? Wonderful to have some new music, isn't it? Thanks to Mike for recording it. Ooh.
How do I make this larger?
This Shabbat, we come to the end of the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis is essentially one big, messy story about family. The relationships in this book are imperfect, and they matter to us because we see ourselves and our relationships reflected in them and in the lessons they teach us. And of course, we're not done yet, because this final parsha of Genesis this final parsha of Genesis packs in a few more important lessons for us before we take our leave. As the parsha begins, we learn that Jacob is nearing his death. He gets Joseph to promise that he will not bury him in Egypt, but with his ancestors. Soon after, Joseph is told, "Look, your father is fading." Without waiting for Jacob to call for him, Joseph arrives with his sons Ephraim and Manasseh in tow. Rabbi Josie Hudson writes, when Joseph rises to the moment and arrives at his father's side without being summoned, he is acting in the spirit of his grandmother Rebecca, who didn't wait to be greeted by her future husband Isaac, but jumped off her camel when she saw him in the distance. He is like Miriam, who led her people in song and dance without being invited to step up, or like the prophet Habakkuk, who called himself to prophecy, demanding change from God. It takes a strong person to show up without invitation. It takes a strong person to seize a moment that presents itself, demanding action. It takes a strong person to know when another person needs him or her, and an even stronger one to respond to the call. Joseph presents his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, to his father Jacob, who claims them as his own. Joseph is careful to place Manasseh, the elder, at Jacob's right hand, and Ephraim, the younger, at Jacob's left. But Jacob crosses his hands, putting his right hand on Ephraim and his left on Manasseh. With his hands in this odd position, he pauses and blesses Joseph, who only seems to notice this strange positioning after he has been blessed. He tells his father that he's blessing the children in the wrong order, essentially trying to control the situation. But Jacob confirms aloud that this arrangement is not an accident. He then blesses his grandchildren by saying that all Israel will bless their children by saying, "May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh," which is how we bless our sons to this day. Jacob then sends for the rest of his sons, and one by one offers them each a blessing that is part praise, part criticism, part aspiration for the future. Sadly, Jacob never reconciles with his only daughter, Dinah, whom he failed to protect or defend when she was assaulted. Father and daughter never spoke again after that incident. And with that, Jacob is gathered to his ancestors. Joseph has Jacob embalmed, and the brothers carry his body to Canaan and bury him in the cave of Machpelah. Joseph and his brothers then return to Egypt, where they settle. Rightfully so. Joseph's brothers are afraid that he may still bear a grudge against them for what they did so many years ago, throwing him into the pit and selling him as a slave. So they concoct a story and tell Joseph that their father told them to give him this message. Forgive, I urge you, the offense and guilt of your brothers who treated you so harshly. Joseph responds, have no fear, for am I in place of God? Though you intended me harm, God intended it for good, in order to accomplish what is now the case, to keep alive a numerous people. Now, therefore, have no fear. I will provide for you and your little ones. Joseph responds by crying and telling them not to fear, that he doesn't hold a grudge. Who is this Joseph? Joseph, who begins his life as a show-off, strutting around in his special coat, tattling on his brothers, and playing his father's favorite. Joseph, who sits locked in prison and rises in and out of favor before saving a land from famine. Joseph, who forgives his brothers for their unspeakable cruelty. Joseph, who hears the thinly veiled untruth of his brothers and responds with tears and words of comfort. This Joseph, I think, is the best of us. He is the part of us that grows beyond our basest capacities. The part of us that encounters life and learns from its whims. The part of us that chooses a path of kindness and compassion and forgiveness. The part of us that assumes others' good intentions and treats them accordingly. I wish Jacob could have walked the path of Joseph, a path of transformation and grace. Instead, Jacob dies flawed, just as he lived. On his deathbed, all of this comes into sharp focus. He swaps his hands over his grandsons' heads before blessing them, thereby blessing the younger with his favored right hand, just as he tricked his father into giving him his older brother's blessing so many years ago. Jacob fails to reconcile with his daughter, just as he failed to protect her when she was vulnerable. Jacob fails to show leadership in helping his older sons feel secure in their relationship with Joseph, just as he failed to mend their strained bonds when they were younger. Who is this Jacob? He is also us. He is the part of us that misses our opportunities for growth and for learning. He is the part of us that remains stuck in who we've been, failing to imagine who we might become. This week, our challenge in living is to accept the reality that each of us has the capacity to be Joseph or Jacob at any given moment, and sometimes both. Jacob never quite learned from his sons, but we have the opportunity to learn from Joseph. Perhaps we might. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May this be God's will. And as we conclude the book of Genesis, whoops. We say, whoops, I'm looking for it. There we go. We say together, Chazak, Chazak, Venit Chazek. Be strong, and together we will be strengthened. Shabbat Shalom. David.
There we go. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, putting the past behind and focusing on the future is one of those ongoing challenges. As we get looking around the room, I think some of us can relate to the idea that the older you get, the more past you got to dump. So it becomes a little more of a project. Thanks to Mike for the slides. Steve for the candles. As far as announcements are concerned, okay, cashiers on winter break will resume January 9th. Okay, coming up on January 11th, running to February 1st, Lisa will be walking us through the evolution of the prayer books for each of the major sub-denominations, and you'll have a chance to understand how the books got to how they are. It's an introduction to Judaism class, restarting on February 9th. Having attended the fall version of it, I can recommend it to anybody who's interested in learning. We'll assume you were not awake every day during religious school when you were a kid. So this is your chance to fill in the gaps. And I haven't done a very articulate manner by somebody who realized that talking to adults, not 10-year-olds or 11-year-olds. So you get a little more nuance and substance thrown in. Okay, big news. Most of you saw these and filled out the survey was sent out regarding in-person services. It turns out that 85% of the people who responded said they thought it was time to start getting together in person at least once a month. So executive committee is in the process of putting that together. First item of business on that is we need a place to hold the services. So if you have a house that with a living room or den that will hold maybe 15, 20 people, we assume closeness is okay. We'll send out a reminder. Everybody will shower at least a day or two before the service so we can get in, so we can all get in. Would be helpful. And if you don't have a house yourself, but you've got a neighbor who's going to be out of town and has loaned you the key to keep an eye on the house while they're gone, there's no harm in mentioning it. We promise to clean up when we're done. Okay, also, I noted in January 23rd, Agudas Sahim is hosting a program called An Afternoon of Jewish Humor. So definitely not an afternoon to be laughed off. So with that, Lisa, back to you.
Lisa, could I make a brief announcement?
Sure.
Some of you may know Joel Ruttman. He was a pediatric neurologist who practiced medicine here in San Antonio for, I don't know, many decades. And when he retired, he and his wife made Aliyah, and they now live in Zichron Yaakov. And I have had the pleasure of visiting there on several occasions. He has written 2 books on the relationship between the theory of evolution and Judaism. And the first book, I finished that some time ago, is a wonderful, very learned book. He's now written a book called Moral Brain, Moral Bible. And he uses his knowledge of pediatric neurology to talk a lot about the development of the brain from a biological perspective and also from a perspective of human evolution. But then he segues into the role that the Torah has played in the development of moral and ethical thoughts. He is, by the way, very learned in Judaism and has a wonderful, wonderful voice. He chanted the High Holy Day services at Roadfight for many years. We've heard him several times when he initially moved to Israel. Roadfight brought him back here to chant the High Holy Day services. And I used to tease him by saying, I've heard of people going from San Antonio to Israel for the High Holy Days, but you're the only Israeli that I've ever heard of who comes to San Antonio for the High Holy Days. But anyway, I just mentioned this because some of you might be interested in particularly the second book, which is much shorter and a little bit more readable. It's somewhat dense with science. But I still think it's very highly readable. It's called Moral Brain and Moral Bible by Joel Ruttman, and you can get it on Amazon. And if you don't remember, you can send me an email and I'll give you the details. But I'm enjoying it very much, and I think some of you might also find it quite enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if you would bring the slide deck back up.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's
part of our service. L'Shabeach.
Lisa, what went wrong?
Just need to open it again. Here we go.
Slideshow.
And now advance it to the next one.
Yes.
Here we go. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, lateit gedula liotzer breshit, shehu noteh shamayim v'yoseh haaretz, v'moshav yikaro b'shamayim mima'al, u'shchinatu zo b'govhei meromim, Hu Eloheinu ein od, va'anachnu kore'im u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at the season in years past, those whom we've taken into our hearts with our own. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing. We remember Martha Adcock, mother of Gerald Adcock, and Richard Hudson. Richard Hudson, father of Rod Hudson, whose anniversaries of their deaths are remembered this Shabbat. We remember 10 people who perished in the Holocaust, Julia Strauss, Sophia Rosetta Swan, Dina de Matos Tejera, Yancia Tertas, Johanna Van Tihin, Selma Trisker, Rosa Tritel, Dina Leidensdorf, Garitia DeLever, and Anna Lisser. Are there others who are observing a yard site or remembering somebody for Kaddish this Shabbat?
The people who perished in the tornadoes in the Midwest this week.
Thank you. Their memories are an abiding blessing as we turn to the words of the Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei rabbah v'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam l'mei almaya. Whoa.
What happened?
We're all the way back to the beginning.
I don't know what caused that.
Why don't we start the beginning of the Mourner's Kaddish so that it's not interrupted?
Yes. There you go.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei rabbah v'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlamat rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru. Amen. May the one who makes peace on high send peace to all who are bereaved, as we say. Amen. Tonight, we're going to learn two easy parts of a new song, and then we're going to do closing song karaoke. Save the third part for another time. Here's the first part. Very, very, very simple. It goes like this. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Try that much.
Shabbat
Shalom, Shabbat shalom. Then it repeats, but it goes down at the end. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. All right, we'll put those two parts together from the beginning. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. That's part one. Okay, here's part two. I'm gonna have to go a little bit higher to start this. Shabbat shalom. Now I gotta start a little bit higher. Shabbat Shalom Umivorach. Try that. Shabbat Shalom Umivorach. Try that much. Okay. Shabbat Shalom Umivorach. Okay, here's the second part of part 2. Shabbat Shalom Umivorach. That's it. Shabbat Shalom Umivorach. Right, so we'll put part 2 together. Shabbat Shalom Umivorach. Shabbat Shalom Umivorach. All right, in a minute, I'm going to have Mike hit the audio button. We're going to listen to Craig Taubman, and he's going to do the whole thing. When we come to part 1 and part 2, sing along. There's a part where it's a round, and you can choose whichever part you prefer. And then he and whoever else is singing is going to do part 3. All right, Mike, go for it.
Shabbat Shalom, 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 Shabbat
Very pretty, very nice.
All right, who would like to lead us in the Kiddush this evening? If you will advance the,
I can lead it.
thank you, Rod.
Yes, time for
Oh,
Kiddush.
One more, Mike.
What?
One more.
Oh.
There we go.
I'm unmuted. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Bore Paria Goffen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kosho b'ahavat u'ratzon inkidlanu zikaron lamase bereshit ki hu yom tequila lemikra et kodesh Zeker litzad Mitzrayim Kifanu bakata Yotanu kidashta Mikol hamim Bishabbat koshika B'yavahu ratzon in Kaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Makadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
Rod, I did my best to try to confuse you, but you managed to carry on without the benefit of my efforts.
Sorry.
No, I apologize.
No, that's okay. I'm good.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lachem min haaretz b'tei avon. All right.